What's up, y'all? I'm Reed the Fishmonger. Gag Grouper season is back, and I'm gonna teach you how to get the maximum yield out of your fish. First things first, we wanna pick up the pectoral fin. You see a little line right there from the bone around that pec fin. We're gonna slip our knife right underneath that line, come out, twist our knife around, and outline the bone around that pec fin down behind the head. You don't want to cut straight down like this. You're going to miss out on all that delicious meat behind the head on these Gag Grouper. Not only do you want to cut behind the head, but you want your knife at an angle like this, so that way you get that meat that cuts behind the head as well. Start right at that opening. Make a little incision, and then with the tip of your knife, you're just going to push forward all the way down. Now we're gonna rest our knife right on top of the skeleton and pull towards the head. Let the skeleton guide your knife so you don't lose out on any of that delicious grouper meat. You can see the skeleton, so all you have to do is rest your knife right on top of it, apply a little bit of pressure down. Not enough pressure where you're gonna cut through the bones, but enough pressure to where your knife will run flush with the bones. Flip it around, do the same thing behind the head. Once you're at the halfway point, you can use the tip of your knife, go on top of the spine. That way you can get a little bit more lift on your fillet without tearing any of the fish meat. Now, we're gonna put the tip of our knife at the base of the ribs. Angle it slightly up. You do not want your knife levitating. I see people all the time trying to separate the connection the pin bones make to the ribs like this. You want your knife touching the skeleton. Blade slightly up. And that right there, that one swipe, separated the connection the pin bones make to the ribs. Now you can lift up higher on that head meat without tearing any of this delicious grouper meat. Tip of the knife on the second side of the spine and slide down. Going over the ribs on your grouper. People struggle with this, but as long as you did that step right, this will be easy. These pin bones were connected to the rib bones. You separated that so that way this is exposed. Now you can use these rib bones just like when you're filleting to guide your knife. Let your knife rest right on top of those rib bones as you slide down. This is an important part right here. At this point, you got to the bottom of all of those rib bones. Once you're at the bottom of all of those rib bones, you can now go straight down without getting any of those rib bones in your meat. And look at that. Flip it over. One smooth swipe, and there's your beautiful Gag Grouper fillet with absolutely no meat lost. That is a thing of beauty right there. Gorgeous snow white meat, speared by my dad yesterday, hours out of the water, going into our display today. I absolutely love getting to sell hours out of the water fish to the local community here. So many people have never had a fish that was less than 24 hours out of the water when it comes to the consumer market. I know you watching, you catch your own fish, you have it all the time, it's not special. But to those that don't catch it, that buy it from a market, to get a fish this fresh, it is such a special thing, and I really enjoy getting to do that through our family business. Let's flip it over and repeat the process. Lift up the fin. You can either puncture at that same spot and come all the way down first, but on the second side, because the motion is a little different, you can also start from up top. So we're gonna start at a hard angle right behind the head and just follow all the way through. Now we're gonna roll them over. All right, we've got our opening right here, and right at this opening, it could be flimsy like this. You can, with your finger, feel where the bone starts. So you can enter your knife right there and just slide all the way down to the tail, just like that. Now, just like the other side, you want to get your knife right on top of that skeleton and let the skeleton guide your knife so you don't lose out on any of that delicious grouper meat. You went through all the trouble of catching one of these fish. Now the best thing for you to do is make sure you don't lose out on any of it. All right, now that you've gotten to the center, use the tip of your knife to go to the top of the spine. You can now take the tip of your knife at the base of the ribs, angle it slightly up, and separate the connection the pin bones make to the ribs. This line right here is where those pin bones were connected to the ribs. Now you can take the tip of our knife on the other side of that center spine at a hard angle to make sure you don't lose out on the meat that's right behind the spine. All right, you got the meat on the second side of the spine, you got the meat on the first side. Now you need to go over the ribs. Going over the ribs on the second side can be harder for people than the first side. I'm gonna show you a pro tip, and that is coming from this side. Get a little wiggle to your knife. Make sure your knife is resting on top of those rib bones, and just let those rib bones guide your knife. And just like that, you went over the ribs flawlessly. All right, just close her back up. One more swipe, and there's your beautiful Gag Grouper second side. No meat loss. You went over the rib bones flawlessly. Man, you guys are doing such a great job. This membrane right here is edible, but we're gonna shave it off for presentation. We're retail displaying these beautiful fish. And for our retail display, we want them as beautiful as possible. This fat cap on the grouper is absolutely delicious. Like, picture that being a fat cap on a steak. That is loads of flavor and buttery deliciousness. We do not shave that off. We want that. But this membrane right here is not fat. Up next, the cheeks. One of the downsides to buying spear caught fish is they aim for the head, rightfully so. We don't want to put holes in the fillet where most of the money is at, and it looks like we have a spear hole in this cheek. What you can do to cut out the cheeks is you can feel where it's soft, where it's hard, over on that serrated edge, resting on the cheek. We want to go right where that becomes soft. And then we'll start outlining the cheek all the way around in that soft spot. Then we're going to use the tip of our knife to make a scoop. So we're just using this part of our knife to scoop in. And underneath this lip is where you're gonna get the most lift. So we're gonna slide our knife under that just like that. We're gonna make one nice line all the way around, and that allows the cheek to release. And often in this corner right here, the cheek has a really firm grip, and sometimes you can pull it out without tearing up the cheek, but often if you don't use a knife on that spot, you could create some damage in the cheek, so it's okay to just use a knife. But wait, there's more. Even though you got all the belly meat off these ribs, on these larger fish, there is still going to be some more meat underneath these rib bones. If you're gonna cook down your whole grouper and utilize the whole fish by simmering it down, you don't need to do this step. But if you're just gonna chuck the skeleton, then I recommend getting this part off first. Look at that. That is a nice chunk of meat that was resting underneath those rib bones. No matter how good you are at filleting, that chunk of meat cannot end up on the fish. So you can see, lift up those rib bones you just cut out, and you've got this nice chunk of meat drop down like that. There's just some membrane holding it together. We're using our knife. We're not cutting through any bone with our knife, just this stringy membrane. And there's the second rib meat. But wait, there's more. If you catch a Gag Grouper and you throw away your grouper throats, grouper collars, grouper wings, whatever you call them, where you live, we've got problems. This is such a premium part of the fish. Never throw it away, please. We're gonna open them up, exposing the gills, slide our knife right underneath all the gills, and give a good flick right underneath the chin. Flip our knife around, All grouper are going to have the collarbone right here that is resting on top of the top bone from the gill plate. This bone is exposed. You give a good cut like that, and that will release that part of the collar. We're gonna flip it over and do the same thing. Open up the gills, see all this membrane, puncture that, slide down, give a good flick underneath the chin. Here's that bone resting on top of the collar. We're gonna flip our knife around, slide right underneath it, and just like that, you've got some beautiful grouper collars. We're just gonna trim it up just a little bit, rinse him off, and he's ready to go. And even though you took all that meat off, you can still make a killer stock with these bones. So if you like making homemade fish soup or just a good healthy broth, you guys, thanks so much for watching. Hope y'all have a killer day. Later.